Most students panic when they see geometry on the SAT, but the truth is, the geometry sections are actually easier if you know the secret. Today, we're going to dive into some of the things that you can do to master the geometry section of the SAT. It is not as hard as you think. So, first, I'm going to give you about four. There are really more things that you need to know when mastering the geometry section on the SAT, but I'm going to give you the top four that I think is needed. And then I'm going to walk you through solving one of the SAT geometry hard questions using one of the tactics that I'm showing you today. So what I'm going to do is, of course, I'm going to share my screen so that I can walk you through what I think you need to know on the SAT when solving your geometry questions. So these are in no particular order, but I know for our students that we do prep, one of the things we definitely tell them to do is to memorize your formulas. I know you may say that, okay, the formulas are on the exam. Why do I need to memorize them? Because it saves time, right? It saves a lot of time. There are certain things that the SAT is going to, in general, basically constantly ask you about, right? It's going to ask you about circumference, it's going to ask you about area, it's going to be asking you about volume and those type of things. So if you know that these are going to be one of the things that are going to be tested on the SAT, why not study so that once you see these things, you're able to pull out that formula and go. So that's the first thing. Now, let's look at what else you need to know. So the second thing, and let me just write out what you should probably be mindful of. So here you want to be mindful of your area formulas, your circumference, as mentioned before. And these really, I think, what really messes students up are the circles. I'm going to tell you that straight up. A lot of my students, they struggle a lot with the circles. And also, some people forget to study your special right triangles. There are so many different ones. Study the first few, but also the properties. All right, now number two, again, no particular order. You want to draw and label everything. And I know you might say, well, it's on the computer. Why do I need to do this? Well, it helps when you draw and label everything so you get an idea of, right, what it looks like and what it should look like. And sometimes, even though the questions on the SAT, they give you a beautiful diagram and then they have some of the labeled things in there, it's helpful when you draw and label out every single thing, like every side, every angle, so that you can have an idea of what you are actually looking for. Sometimes they'll put, let A be equal to 10 or something like that. You can actually draw and label it for yourself, and it will help you when solving the question. All right, so let's look at number three. Now, this one, well, you have to know your relationships, really. But this one is going to be look for relationships. Now, the SAT loves to, that's an A. It loves to test certain things. Listen, nothing is new under the sun. And so when we talk about look for relationships, we're talking about proportional reasoning. It talks a lot about proportions, especially with triangles. So you want to look for that. You also want to look for similar. Oh my goodness, there's so many questions about similar triangles. So you need to know those. And once you can spot those, that will be very helpful for you. And also, they ask a lot about parallel lines. And so if you know what to identify, when it comes to parallel lines, you are already golden. So these are some of the things that you want to look for when it comes to relationships. And the last thing, and I don't know, a lot of people, they neglect this part of things, is use Desmos when possible, right? We get the Desmos calculator, and I don't know why we just say, let me solve this by hand. And of course, back in the day, this is something that you'd want to do. But I preach, if you've been on this channel for a while, I've been preaching Desmos, Desmos, Desmos. I even have several videos. So if you want to go back and look on how to really use Desmos to your advantage, you want to make sure you're utilizing Desmos. Now, let's look at a question that utilizes one of these properties. Okay, so the question we're going to look at, let me just slide this over here. Okay, so here we have, let me just slide this over so that we can look at it. Okay. All right, so here we have a graph that is depicted, and we're told that the curve of the graph is y equals x squared over 2, and then we have y equals x over 2. Okay, all right, x squared over 2 and x over 2. Now, here it's telling us that they intersect at the origin, which we see. Okay, so this is where the origin is. And then we see that it intersects at AB. Very good. And so we're being asked to determine what is the value of B. And so this is where I always tell people, and I said this in a previous video, write what you're being asked. And so it's asking you what is the value of B. So we might need to figure out what this value is. So there, of course, is an algebraic way to solve this. And okay, I'm going to do it by hand for those of us who are tempted. So if you're solving two curves and you're trying to figure out the solution, you're trying to figure out where they meet, you typically can set them equal to each other. So we have x squared divided by 2 is equal to x divided by 2. And so we're trying to figure out what is the solution. Now, we already know that 0 is the solution because it meets that 0, 0. So that's not the solution that we're looking for. We're looking for the other one. So we want to get x by itself, but I see that I can possibly, first, let's multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the 2's in the denominator. And so I'll have here, what is that? X squared is equal to x. And so I noticed that they both have x in common, so I can also divide both sides by x, right? So I have x, oh, that's it, x is 1. So my answer for x is 1, but notice, you see where I put this here, it's asking me for b. The solution is a, b. So if x is 1, so I come here, x is 1, so that will be my a. I need to plug in to see what b would be. And so this will satisfy both equations. So I can plug in any one. And so let's say we use the second equation, y equals 1 divided by 2. Well, originally it was x, right? It doesn't matter which one you use. If you use the x squared divided by 2, it should still give you the same answer. This gives me 1 squared divided by 2 because I'm plugging in 1 for x. So, and my answer is 1/2. So b is 1/2, and that will be my answer. Now, it took a little bit of time for me to get there, but let's plug this into Desmos, right? Remember, I always say that Desmos is definitely a better bet. So let's pull up Desmos really quickly, and let's see what it looks like. Okay. So the equation, the first one that we had was what? X squared. And you don't have to write the, what you call it now? You don't have to write the y equals. Okay. So my first equation was a parabola, x squared divided by 2. And the second one was just x, so straight line divided by 2. Look at this. Well, look at this beauty here. Oh my goodness. 2 seconds, look at that, 1 and 0.5. And so if we go back to, our equation or the question that we had initially, pull that up, right? So if we go back there, what do we see? It was C. It was the same thing that we got, right? It was C. So that's why geometry isn't that hard anymore on the SAT, really. There's so many different options that you can look at to help you with the geometry questions on the SAT. So no more should the geometry section really have you looking crazy or guessing or wondering what you're supposed to be doing. You should really be breezing through your geometry section. So again, let's kind of go through the things that we just mentioned that were very helpful. So if you are on the SAT, the geometry section should not mess you up. It should not be hard for you because one, you need to memorize your formulas. They're always asking you about areas, circumference, triangles, special right triangles. So make sure you memorize those formulas. Number two, you want to draw and label everything. It does not do that all the time, but it's also helpful when you have it in your hand to make sure you know what you have and what you're working with. Next, you want to look for relationships. The SAT is not new under the sun, and they love to test about proportional relationships, whether that's with your triangles or other things. It likes to talk about similar triangles, and it likes to talk about parallel lines. So once you're able to spot these things in your questions, you should be able to solve them very quickly. And lastly, you want to utilize Desmos. Desmos is a game changer when it comes to the geometry section. So do not waste time with your brain, with your pencil and your pen. Use Desmos, get your answer in a split of a second so that you can move on to harder questions. I hope this was helpful. Do like, share, and subscribe. On this channel, my sole purpose is to bridge the wealth gap, and I do that by helping students do well on the SAT so that they can get scholarships for college and universities and go to their dream school fully funded. Because when you graduate without debt, you're in a whole new income bracket. And so until next time, see you.